This meeting to order of the Economic Development Authority, regular meeting, April 17, 2025. Do we actually do a roll call? How do we do that? We just call them out?
Yeah.
Yeah. Roy Carter,
Here.
Bruce Sanders,
Here?
Lisa McLaughlin,
Here?
Samuel Rice,
Here.
Billy Barrick, absent, Taryn Bryce Rowland,
Here.
and Tom Richardson, chairman, present. Others attending, Don Gill is here, John Bateman, and Crystal Way. And first order of business, are we online? Is approving of the minutes from the October 17th minute, October 17th, 2024 meeting, I'm sorry. Everybody receive the packet via email and review the minutes? You have
October
them?
or January?
I'm sorry, I was reading.
That's my fault. That's
Oh,
a
that was-
typographical error.
That was in the January.
January 16th,
Yeah, January.
Is the-
2025.
I'm sorry, I was reading off the agenda and not looking at the minutes, but it's the January 16, 2025 minutes. Thank you. Any comments, changes, updates anybody sees?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as read.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor of the minutes from the January 16th, 2025 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Financial status report, Mr. Bateman.
Thank you all. So the Lancaster County EDA has a community partnership checking account through Blue Ridge Bank. Beginning balance as of January 16th, 2025, $40,610.07. Credits, which is interest earned for January, February, and March, in the total of $9.60. Debits, a grant to Rishi Yoga and Wellness from the January meeting, minus $2,500, and a paper statement fee of $3, leaving an ending balance, and typo, as of January 16th, April 2025, or April 5th, 16th, 2025, $38,000, $116.67.
So that is the April balance.
Yes, that is the April balance. Pardon the typos. Domestic Government Unit CD, this is a 10-month, 4.42% interest, credited quarterly, opened on October 31st, 2025, and matures August 31st, 2025. Beginning balance as of January 16th, 2025, $41,744.57. Credits, which is interest earned for January, February, and March, totaling $465.07, leaving an ending balance as of April 16th, 2025 of $42,209.64. The EDA currently has an annual revenue of approximately $12,472 from all administrative fees collected through the year on prior bond issuances broke down as follows. The county 2022 bond, which is due in February 2025, of $6,250. And the Mariners Museum, which is due in October of 2025, of $6,222, totaling $12,472. This completes my financial report. Are there any questions? I'm going to reach out to Blue Ridge Bank about the paper statement fee.
I was about to ask,
Yeah, that kind of irks a little bit, but
especially the title community partnership checking.
yeah, and it
Palatable.
would be great if they could just send us a PDF maybe? I mean,
They might be able to.
so,
Well, they could waive the $3, you know.
or they could waive the $3.
Be real partners.
Yeah, all right.
Any other questions about the financial update?
This is probably a part of upcoming conversation, but do we just like to discuss our plan for asking for money from the Board of Supervisors for the next fiscal year? Again, just making,
Yeah, would you be referring to the poorhouse track funding?
That can be requested at any time during the year. It doesn't have to be at budget time because it's not part of the general fund. It's in a separate account.
sure.
So whenever the EDA feels like it wants to go down that road, just let us know, and I'll take it to the board as a consideration item.
Yeah, we met once, smaller subcommittee to talk about the criteria and what we can and can't do, and there'll be a discussion about
Sure.
some roles and functions of IDAs and EDAs. I've met with Dan Siegel, our bond attorney, just trying to understand how we can generate more income and be more effective with economic development for the county.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so that actually tees it up perfectly. Bond issuances is how we have derived our revenue to date, and we have not had a bond issuance since the issuance of the bond to the county in 2022. And so the county actually has some opportunities to borrow money for projects, including the school and our public access projects. And Don's going to go over that now.
Oh, I thought you wanted to put that on screen.
Oh, you want to put this on screen? I did want to
That's
put
what
this
I
on
was
screen.
saying, yeah. Did you want to do that first, or you want me to tell them what's going on?
We can go on. We can go on it.
Okay, all right. As you may or may not know, the county is going to be looking for some additional financing this year to finish up the school project, $15 million. We had our financial advisors come to the March Board of Supervisors meeting and lay out some options. The board has decided to go through the Virginia Public School Authority for the school project this fall in that bond issuance. So that $15 million will come about this fall and close sometime in November. We're also looking at $10 million in non-school related capital improvement items to finish up basically, or no, eventually finish up the parks that the county is in various stages of construction or planning. And that's where the EDA may come into play. The board has decided to go down what Davenport calls a dual-track financing approach on this $10 million. What that means is Davenport actually issued an RFP yesterday afternoon to about 60 or 70 banks, Chesapeake was included, for the $10 million. Those responses will be due back in mid-May. At the same time, we're going to submit an application to the Virginia Resources Authority. That's due May 1st for the same $10 million. Once we have both responses, the Davenport will come back to the May Board of Supervisors meeting, present the bank loan option versus the Virginia Resources option, and the board will make a decision at that time. If a bank loan is chosen as the preferred option, that's where the EDA will be involved through a lease revenue bond, as has been done in the past. The most recent one was back in 2022, I believe, with Truist Bank and a $5 million lease revenue bond. So the EDA may be involved if the direct bank loan is the preferred choice. If VRA is the preferred choice, the EDA will not be involved.
Board of Supervisors will determine that.
Yes.
Okay.
And Don, that basically comes down to what has the more favorable terms?
Yeah, the direct bank loan is being asked for 10, 15, and 20-year terms. There's a small taxable piece involved with that. Most of it is tax exempt, so I think it's 8.5 tax exempt, 1.5 taxable. And yeah, so the terms and the interest rate will be what the board is looking at the May meeting, and they'll make a decision on the best option, and that's what we'll pursue.
Yeah, and from what I've learned about bonds and the Virginia Resources Authority is the Virginia Resources Authority provides pretty favorable terms. The state of Virginia set that up specifically for that reason. And that's why a lot of municipal projects are typically funded through VRA as opposed to through banks and EDAs.
So the bottom line is, if a bank does come in with the best option and the board chooses that, as I said, the EDA will be involved. You'll probably need to have a special meeting in June to approve the lease revenue bond, and then the board would approve that at their late June meeting. So, but we're not going to know anything until the end of May.
Tom, I was going to invite you to maybe, if you could, share some of the contents of your conversation with Dan Siegel, who's our bond counsel, as to the availability of our bonds and the ability to issue them on a regular basis.
Are you going to go through the slides that he provided?
Yeah.
I just had lunch with him, just to meet him and to tell him that, what can we do to generate more income for our EDA and sponsor more bonds, and he went through some of the issues that Don just talked about, that there's other avenues these days for municipal financing. It was just really a meet and greet. We did talk about, he showed me these slides, he provided these slides, just about the history of the EDA. I thought it'd be good if and I shared that out via email, I think, to this group. And that was a month or two ago. It's been a while.
It was a little while. It might have gotten buried.
But there was no magic bullet. It was just kind of a meet and greet, and he's aware. I just wanted to wave the flag of Lancaster County and say, hey, we're here. Don't forget about us. Whatever we can do. Is there something we're missing? And there's some programs in here that I guess John's going to go through the slides that as we continue to meet maybe with our subcommittee and look at the criteria of of our grant process, I think we can come up with a grant process that makes sense, that has more impact, that maybe at that point, that's the time to go to the county and get some of that more of the poorhouse funds, and try to focus on something very specific like workforce housing or whatever we decide, instead of just continue doing what we're doing, in my opinion.
Sure.
But
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
So I'm gonna go through the presentation that Dan Siegel provided about the roles and functions of IDAs and EDAs, and I'm going to follow it up with a presentation of some specific examples from our region in the state of Virginia of activities that EDAs have undertaken, and they're wide-ranging and varied. So just a real quick kind of historical perspective on EDAs. So EDAs and IDAs are the same types of entities created in the late 60s. Through the mid-80s, it was a conduit to provide tax-exempt loans to industrial and commercial buildings, shopping centers, restaurants, office buildings, shell buildings, to try to provide spaces that you could incentivize businesses to move in. public hearings and volume caps required in the 1980s for private activity bonds. It eliminated tax-exempt financing for commercial facilities. Governmental facilities were added by the General Assembly in the 1990s. So this is just like some quick background. Many IDAs converted to EDAs when the focus shifted from industrial development to supporting small and medium-sized businesses. At one point, our EDA was focused on supporting non-government organizations and nonprofits, and more recently has been focused on small business and medium-sized business support. So in 2025, since 2025, EDAs take on a bunch of different types of activities that are very wide-ranging. It usually is dependent on local conditions and what their local needs are, but they can provide tax-exempt financing for manufacturing, exempt facility nonprofits, and governmental financings, lease purchase and moral obligation, courthouses, office buildings, school facilities, industrial parks, fire stations, animal shelters, and the like. They can issue taxable bonds, incentives for equipment purchase, lease purchase financing. They're involved with broadband and cellular towers, industry appreciation events, performance agreements, grant and conduit loan funding. Obviously, these examples here, the AFIT program would be applicable to us. Annual chamber or business dinners. We recently kind of entered into or began a strategic relationship with our Chamber of Commerce by becoming a top-tier member. I think our chamber does a pretty good job of the social aspects and fundraising aspects of a chamber. But as we've challenged ourselves to be more active as an EDA, we're at the same time challenging the chamber to be more active as a conduit for our local businesses. Economic development staffing, in this county, the county provides that. Downtown redevelopment, revolving loan programs, and I'm going to touch more on the revolving loan programs here in a little bit. Incentives for blighted areas, I'm going to touch on that here in the next presentation. Marketing activities, business incubators, I'll touch more on that in the next presentation. Special taxing districts, TIF financing districts or overlays, microgrants and loans. Yes?
What is TIF?
That's a tax incremental financing.
Okay.
So you would basically create an overlay district where you would gather an additional tax that's specifically related to a project or an activity.
Thank you.
Yeah. Farmers market, dedicated funding sources, industrial parks, shell buildings. Although when it comes to industrial parks and shell buildings, a lot of EDAs have gone away from that, sometimes due to a lack of space, but mostly due to the cost of pre-development and how long those industrial parks and shell buildings could sit vacant before you actually entice a business. It's a huge investment to sit for many, many years in some instances. Options for land development, business incubators, job fairs. Private facilities, universities, hospitals, nursing homes, YMCA. The regional YMCA recently was looking for a bond. They did, Paul Shakatana, who sits on that board, did mention us, our EDA. Unfortunately, they needed to borrow more money than we were allowed to on an annual basis lend. And so they chose another option. When it comes to hospitals, the Bon Secours Regional recently took out a $600 million bond through Henrico's EDA of which 10 million was going to be spent here locally. And so our bond council and board of supervisors had to take action. Multifamily housing revenue bonds, and we mentioned housing tax credits and other tax credits. A little bit more about that at a later date and some in the next presentation. So authority fees, such as we have initial application fee and annual authority fee, which we have as a 1/8 of 1% of bonds outstanding. You want to balance your approach, and I think that's what we're intending to do, which is having, a combination of incentives that we can provide, not just a grant, but micro, small business loans, other tax incentives, tax-based incentives. I think when we had our discussion with the subcommittee about our grant program, we want the grants to be more performative and incentive-based. We want folks to. We're not trying to, heighten the bar, a barrier, or create a barrier to entry. We just want to make them more impactful. So, one of the things we talked about and we could do is target specific industries that are needed. And then finally, some other laws that apply to EDAs: conflict of interest, procurement, Freedom of Information Act. So I want to hone in on this slide here when it comes to Procurement Act. It's not applicable to authority facilities and does not apply to government facilities, EDA-owned facilities. Some localities have taken great advantage of that fact, and so EDAs have used land assets and other assets, reducing some of the costs of development. I think we're all familiar with Freedom of Information Act. So this is just, I ran through this really quickly because I just wanted to provide some background and context to the next presentation, which provides some more specific examples. But as you can see, there are a lot of authorities and activities that EDAs can undertake. And during our subcommittee meeting, we had discussed providing some examples of those locally. So that's what the next slide. But any questions about these slides?
I think as we develop a new criteria or update the criteria, we might consider direct loan program
I was just about to ask John.
and use some of that poorhouse track as the bank.
Startup.
And then we can lend money at a percentage rate lower than market rate and use that, then we.
That's income.
Yeah, that's income. So that's something to consider.
John, did you have any involvement with the Planning District Commission's direct loan program?
No, I didn't, but I have that included in my next set of slides.
Awesome.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this first, which is some examples, and then I'm going to talk about what's existing, including that direct loan program and the sources of those programs. So at our last meeting, Tom had mentioned a new building in King and Queen County in the area of Shacklefords. I reached out to they have a part-time economic development director who's really, really stellar. And she informed me that it's called Hub 33. It's intended to and currently houses the Middle Peninsula Planning District Commission, Centera Health. It's primarily a telemedicine facility because it's such a huge county. They found an increased need for telemedicine. They take inpatient as well, but that's what it's focused on. It's also a telework center and a business incubator. They have office spaces similar to what we had in Warsaw. with the Small Business Development Center and incubator up there that's now defunct, and this SBDA is moved to Fredericksburg. But high-speed internet, conference areas, computer workstations, printers, fax machines, everything you would need to either start or incubate a business or to work from home. So that was one of the reasons they'd have access to the facilities they needed to work from home. So this center provides that. Looking at the website, so here, they talk about a strategic location. This is a very simplistic a portion of their county website that deals with economic development, but they talk about their strategic location, their low tax rates. They generally have a business-friendly environment. They mention their quality of life. And they also...
How did they fund the construction?
What's that?
How did they fund it?
Oh, so, I'm sorry. Yeah, I glossed over that. They funded it through an Economic Development Administration grant. So they have the Facilities Grant Program through Economic Development Administration, and that's how they funded the construction.
They're from the state,
From the Federal Economic Development Administration.
federal, so
Yes.
they got a grant from the feds
Yes, correct.
to build that.
Yes. And I've actually looked into that grant program for some sort of similar incubator space. The good news is we actually already have space. It's where Northern Neck Lead used to be. It's where Chesapeake Commons is. And I've had some conversations with RCC about that. So anyway, and they also spotlight local business. And so it's very simple, but I just wanted to provide it as one example of a neighboring or nearby locality that's taking small steps to improve their economic
So
conditions.
the EDA came up with the concept themselves and then applied for grants through the Fed to fund it.
Yeah, so they got a new county administrator who then hired a part-time economic development director who had extensive economic development experience elsewhere. And it was their brainchild to come up with a building. They had that site with a farmer's market that just sat unused, and the county had given that piece of land to their EDA years ago, to create that farmer's market. So this was a way to get better use out of the site. They lined up their tenants, first with the Middle Peninsula Planning District and then with Centera Health. And then in the center of the facility is where the telework center is. Me and Roy are going to go on a tour here pretty soon.
Was it 8th?
Yeah.
8th May.
So anyway, just very simple. Next example is Gloucester. Gloucester provides various financing and incentive programs. So they have an economic development loan fund, which is a revolving loan fund through the EDA. They have a loan guarantee program that's through the Virginia Small Business Finance Authority. Same thing, they have a Virginia Capital Access Program. And I'm going to share this presentation with you, and you'll have the links. Everything's linked. A child care financing program through the Finance Authority. On some of the incentives, our public-private partnership fund is on a case-by-case basis, so it's sort of tailored. Site acquisition and preparation assistance. And then obviously they have public utilities where they can provide utility extension and connection fee waivers.
So the EDA doesn't provide the loan guarantee program, Virginia Small Business Financing Authority.
Correct. And they provide the technical assistance to access that program.
Yeah, we have customers at the bank that we refer to VSBFA. So we'll do a loan to a small business and there'll be a loan guarantee because it's a startup or something, but
Yeah.
it doesn't need to go through an EDA.
That not,
to access to Virginia small business.
they're acting as a conduit for the existing resources, which I hope we would do as well. And in partnership with the chamber, that could be to great effect, you know? I guess it's, like we discussed before, when you have a small business that has some sort of financing need, first step is like, I'm going to go to a bank, or I'm going to go to the EDA and ask for a grant, when there are other resources available, and you just have to make those more widely disseminated. They also have an industrial development bond program, and that's again through the Small Finance Authority. So, and they have it all laid out really nicely on their website. The next thing I want to talk about is the website itself, which highlights, you know, community profile. They have an annual report that they put out. They have a listing of resources, both local, state, and federal, for new businesses. They also have those financing incentives that I mentioned. They have a site selection tool that is hosted through VEDP, and they also feature key industries in sites. And I'll kind of show you that real quick. So this is, again, this is a part of their county website. Me and Glenn have actually looked at it.
I wonder if, I'm sorry to cut you off.
That's all right.
If we actually did a $100,000 loan or $50,000 loan or something to a small business through the EDA, if the Virginia Small Business Financing Authority would guarantee our loan, the EDA's loan, like they do guaranteed bank loans.
Yeah, that's kind of the direction I kind of went down in doing some further research. And this is going to be the first of many presentations to you guys with more detail. I'm actually hoping to invite some folks to come speak with you in more detail about opportunities like that. But I agree. So we have, you know, like we have an enterprise zone incentive, which is a state incentive program, but the bar is kind of high. And I feel like the EDA can provide financial resources that kind of nestle under what would be the bar to entry for an enterprise zone and fall under what a bank would be willing to finance, you know, filling a gap. And I think that's what you're talking about, right? It's like gap financing.
What is the enterprise zone?
I'm gonna get to that in a minute. Yeah.
Got everything in this presentation,
We'll
yeah.
just let you talk.
Yeah. Anyway, but they have a community profile here, an annual report. They highlight key industries. They actually feature sites, and this is a county-owned site. And then they use this is a embedded, but it's hosted by the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, where they list both publicly owned and privately owned sites. They can be commercial, they can be residential sites, they could be just about anything. And this is one of the things I've always had in mind for a website when we develop it, is having this same functionality. And the great thing is VEDP already has it. It's just a matter of embedding it into a website. But it's a great tool, and like I've said before, we want a prospective business that wants to locate to our county to be able to decide to do so without even having to set foot here. And so providing this and what they have here as a county, I think is a really good way of doing that. So this is one of the examples when we move forward with a website, which we're exploring what the possibilities are this year for actual implementation next year. So that's another example. Another example is James City County, who also have financing and incentives. They actually have tailored local incentive programs, so they do it on a case-by-case basis. In addition to their enterprise zone area, they have a local tourism zone. And this is obviously because Williamsburg, James City County has quite a bit of tourism, but they provide additional incentives for tourism-based businesses. They provide tax credits, technical support, in addition to state incentive programs through VEDP and the Virginia Small Business Financing Authority.
Did you say that local tourism zone is a state program or?
No, it's a local program.
It's a local program, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I was wondering, because that,
It's an overlay that they've created.
sure.
to provide additional incentives. So it's kind of like the enterprise zone, but they're focused solely on areas where they want to see more tourism business development
Yeah, that's a great idea.
in and around, historical Williamsburg. So as far as like business support, they have a nice landing page here that shows you what business incentives are available, state and local resources. They also have site selection tool. And you'll notice it's very similar to Gloucester's because it's the same VEDP hosted site tool. And me and Glenn have talked about it. This would be fairly simple to implement here once we have a good space for it to embed. We can embed it on the existing page, yeah. Including not just county-owned properties and buildings, but, because we do, the primary school is listed on VEDP's main website. Now, those sites have to be certified, and they have to be industrial or commercially zoned. This tool for your locals, it can be commercial, industrial, residential, whatever. It can be whatever you want it to be.
And how are those managed? Is that through, like somebody is manually managing this in this website, or is that something that can be pulled in from a different website?
It's pulled in from VEDP, so
Okay.
they manage it. You give them the sites
Okay.
and the information, and they input it.
So if we were to do something like this, using that tool, we'd have to have certified sites as well.
No. So if they're featured on VEDP's main website, they have to be certified sites.
I gotcha.
So you go through a form and you have to fill out quite a bit of information about that site.
Sure.
And then they vet it and certify it and then put it up. But for this local tool, which they host, it's a different form that you fill out. That's just some basic information about a parcel or a building, and then they put it in there, and then you're basically just embedding that on your website.
Awesome.
On their website, they have an information center for businesses, prospective and current businesses. Again, they highlight their quality of life. When you go to the main website, they kind of have buttons that says start your business, grow your business, move your business. I'll show you right there. So when you go to their main site, and I really liked this, and it takes you to the various different resources that you would have if you were an existing business versus a startup versus a business that's wanting to move into the area. So resources for new businesses, they have this really interesting thing called Launchpad that's a partnership with William & Mary. And so it's basically an entrepreneurial hub, an innovation center, and it provides all support at all stages of development for a business. So they offer workspace and facilities, that's kind of like an incubator, educational programs, mentorship. You have membership that you pay for the space that you would use. So they have different tiers and different pricing. And when I spoke with them about it, counterpart at William & Mary, they primarily do that for the business to have some sort of skin in the game, and two, to recoup some of the costs for running it on a daily basis. In addition to Launchpad Entrepreneurial Center, they have this William & Mary Entrepreneurship Center. This is all part of Launchpad, but this is their entrepreneurship hub. And again, I'll share these slides with you so you can kind of explore on your own. But they highlight events where folks, we have Julian Patterson and Paul Shakatano do Biz and Buzz at Front Porch Coffee House. They do similar things here where they invite entrepreneurs to come speak. On top of that, the Virginia Peninsula, that's all the counties and cities in the Virginia Peninsula, came together to create Start Peninsula, which is a competitive kind of pitch competition for local businesses. and successful businesses receive detailed technical support, financing opportunities, mentorship, and the like. So I think the way I laid these slides out is I'm showing you various degrees of where you can go and how deep you can get into it. James City County is kind of like the Cadillac example, but there's no reason we can't do any of that. The Lancaster 2035 plan lays out many of those activities. It's a matter of, which of these activities the EDA is party to and what role the EDA plays. But when we met with the subcommittee, it was about taking kind of baby steps, examining our existing program, modifying that program, exploring additional programs like a loan program, and going from there. Another example, and now we're getting into, Roy had mentioned in an email about housing. It all comes back to, in the 2035 plan, the availability of affordable housing for workforce. So the Marion and Smith County EDAs have combined for this BOUD program. It aims to alleviate blighted, abandoned, underutilized, and derelict properties and provide affordable housing opportunities. The program is a partnership between those two EDAs, the Marion Redevelopment Housing Authority and the Mount Rogers Planning District Commission. So this is a large-scale, multi-jurisdictional, long-term project, and I think they liken it to building an interstate. I mean, it's really about housing infrastructure and reimagining and rebuilding that infrastructure. They have we do have vacant, derelict properties here in Lancaster County, and a good amount of them. In Southwest Virginia, it's a much more pervasive problem, and so they needed to address that. So this program actually was a direct result of a regional and local housing needs assessments. The Mount Rogers PDC put together a housing need assessment, and I'm happy to provide any one of you a copy of that. It's one of the examples that we're using. And a local the town of Marion Housing and Redevelopment Authority put together their own housing need assessment. So basically, the program, the EDAs acquire the vacant, blighted, or derelict property. They then, through the PDC and the Redevelopment Housing Authority, either renovate the home or rebuild it with a modular home. And then they sell them at market rate, but they subsidize the mortgage to make it more affordable and to new property owners. And you can see right here, it says, why rent when you can buy a new home? So it's really about improving or increasing home ownership opportunity and at the same time taking pressure off the available rental housing stock. So it's moving people from rental to home ownership.
Do you know if they had a Habitat for Humanity in that area? It sounds like,
They do. They do.
sounds like the same program.
It's similar, except they're more into production. So I've recently had some strategic conversations with our Habitat, and this one home at a time approach isn't going to put a dent, and they recognize that. And so this is a way of buying up vast amounts of vacant and blighted property. In the town of Marion, they actually have, whole blocks of vacant and dilapidated structures. So we're talking about taking that same kind of concept and scaling it up. They're using Acquire, Renovate, Sell program through DHCD and some low-income housing tax credits.
Yeah, I was wondering what their
Capital stack. Yeah, it's a combination of Acquire, Renovate, Sell funds through DHCD and low-income housing tax credits. And in some cases, they're using housing choice vouchers, which can be used for home ownership to offset mortgage costs. It's a really stellar example. It won a governor's award. It was presented at the Governor's Housing Conference last November that I attended, and it's something that we should really consider. But I wanted to provide it because the EDAs play a strategic role in the program. Because of that authority that they have to be able to offload property without any competitive process, it really allows you to kind of pick and choose who your developer is, in this case, the Redevelopment and Housing Authority and the PDC.
So they're able to issue tax credits on these projects and sell the tax credits to generate the revenue they need.
Yeah, yeah. And there's other versions of tax credits. There's New Market and historic tax credits. And through my participation in this community investment collaborative and training, I'm learning a lot more about those different types of capital that can be used to stack into a project, to fund a project. You're not going to find a grant that's going to do everything. It's about finding different forms of capital and bringing them together. There's examples elsewhere where a CDFI, a community development finance institution, gets involved, like Locus, and they're guaranteeing a bank loan up to 85%. So then you have that private investment, but it's being offset. The risk is being offset by a community development finance institution. There's myriad examples. I just wanted to provide this one because it's a really impressive example and is seemingly very replicable here. So I want to get into, before we kind of get into the discussion, some existing opportunities. So the county, there's a regional enterprise zone, of which Lancaster, Kilmarnock have an enterprise zone. Enterprise zone is a geographical area that is determined by the local zone administrator. It can't exceed a certain amount of acreage, and a locality can have up to three non-contiguous zones that make up the zone. The baseline or the basis for the enterprise zone is a state incentive through the Department of Housing and Community Development. They have two grants. One of them is a job creation grant. The bar to entry there is five jobs, and a real property investment grant. And the bar to entry there is $100,000 of investment. So just to give you kind of a visual here. So this is Lancaster County zone in orange, blue, and red, and Kilmarnock zone in white. It's a dual zone, so Kilmarnock administers their own zone, but for reporting purposes, it's all one zone. The county's main zone is in the upper county, and then we have two non-contiguous zones down here along Route 200 and along Route 3 and up Harris Road. We recently were applied for and were renewed for an additional 5 years and then another 4 after that. And we're getting ready to work with DHCD to modify the zone. This would be modifying the zone boundary. And the idea here is that you would pick up parcels where you anticipate development or where you would like to see a commercial development.
So that become larger, be more aligned with the Triway Trail, and then form a greater triangle between the three towns?
So it can't become larger.
It can't.
Yes, there's this cap on the acreage,
Oh.
but it can be modified, our total acreage, so that the zone can still be modified by removing acreage elsewhere and adding it.
Got it.
But yes, the conversations I've had with the town of Kilmarnock, who also were renewed, is that we would work together to have our zones work in concert. And so yes, my intention is to bring the zone down Harris Road to pick up the areas around the industrial park. There's quite a bit of development on Route 200, so I would like to see that section of the zone grow considerably. And at some point in time, it would be really great to pick up portions of Irvington and Whitestone where there's development, or we anticipate development with the new sewer there. And it's not just about the geography of the zone. There are also local incentives. So through the Planning District Commission, when they were doing all the local zone administration, they have a monetary incentive. And I don't know the status of these. This is what's on the PDC's website. But the monetary incentive for new and expanding businesses that create 25 full-time jobs or invest $250,000 and have an average annual wage that is at least 125% of the area average. We probably need to reach out to the Planning District Commission to find out exactly if this regional incentive is still active. And I'd love to know more about where the incentive, what's funding the incentive. And then on the same website, we have a local incentive, and I don't believe this is still active, but I'm still unsure. Grants not to exceed $1,000 to businesses improving their facade, and then 0% interest loans for microenterprise development, and a tax credit for business rehabilitating property within the zone. I think me and Don talked about it. We didn't really think that these were still active incentives. I only put it on there to illustrate that there's an opportunity for the EDA to create incentives that both match the enterprise zone, that are additive to it, and that also can slot in at investments that are less for those that don't quite meet that bar. I'm thinking, in a business investment from 20 to, $60,000 or $70,000. Another existing opportunity is the Planning District Commission offers just a web page that has some resources for rural entrepreneurs of particular interest. This was developed by the Commonwealth Center for Recurrent Flooding and Resiliency. It's a Coastal Virginia Small Business Assessment and Guide. It's a really neat little resource. But they also have access to capital, and this is what you mentioned, Taryn, about the Small Business Loan Program that was funded through the Economic Development Administration. And you can see the terms there. There's no reason, I don't believe, that we couldn't, as an EDA, have our own program as well. More opportunities is better than less opportunities in my mind.
As far as that goes, I can't remember. I think I talked with Jerry about that, or it might have been Lisa, about the possibility of the Planning District Commission administering a Lancaster version of the program. So we might be able to take it, if this was a couple of years ago. And
Like them being the
It's not
fiscal
what it is.
agent for it and administering the program?
I didn't hear the first part of that.
It's like them being the fiscal agent?
Yes. Yes. So we wouldn't have to take on the administrative burden.
Yeah, you're right to hone in on the fact that these things, what experience I did have at the PDC with this program is that it's heavy in administration.
Yeah.
But, having, and then if you went for, there's multiple loan programs that could fund like a microenterprise or a revolving loan. The Economic Development Administration, which you would have to go through the local, the Economic Development Organization, and regionally, that's the Planning District Commission. So Jerry Davis is the EDO for our region. But the USDA Rural Development Office also has 2 programs for setting up microenterprise loans. One of them recently, it closed. It was supposed to have an application due date of May 31st, and it now says that it's closed. And I presume that it has something to do with some of the changes at the federal level. There's another program for setting up a revolving loan, and in November of last year, they made it only eligible for rural utilities. I thought that was interesting. Basically, a rural utility would borrow the money and then relend it to businesses.
So are you suggesting that we would have a program maybe that is used for different things than what we have listed here? like, that is filling in some of
It's,
those
it's
gaps,
filling a
or
different gap,
It's
yeah.
just another source of funding for.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to mirror what the PDC offers.
Right.
You would want it to be supplemental to what the PDC
So what kind of
offers.
things would those be? I mean, would it be, I don't know, payroll and, would it be other business expenses?
I think the eligible uses would probably be similar. And hopefully you would be, depending on the program rules, would be allowed to, because there's a program designed for this program, which I can share with you all. But you would like to maybe increase or add additional uses of the loan.
The other thing to note about this program is they do exhaust their funds. So it's not like the programs are redundant because
There's more need.
there's more need than supply.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe you could even, you could focus it towards certain kinds of businesses. You could even focus it on a specific area of the county. What I'd like to do for the subcommittee is the next time we meet, I can have quite a bit more information about revolving loans, microenterprise loans, which agencies at the federal level could fund such a program, and we can have a more robust discussion about that, in addition to the changes we want to make to our grant program.
Yeah.
Opportunity zones in fund through the IRS. You can see this is the census tract that is in the opportunity zone in Lancaster County. It encompasses most of Kilmarnock and a good portion of our primary growth area along between Route 200 and Route 3. And then Hub Zone program through the Small Business Administration.
Get back to the previous slide. So what does that offer? So somebody has capital gain tax they have to pay, and if they invest that in that zone, they don't have to pay it?
I'd have to find out a lot more about the opportunity
Are
zones.
we aware? I mean, anyhow, I guess this is part of maybe redoing the website or something to put all this out there. Because if it's not out there, nobody knows about it.
That's right. And I've talked to some businesses in Kilmarnock that are using opportunity zones. Those were, the one business was one has a government contract, it's a defense contract, and that's how they learned about it, is through,
I know, but I know who that is.
yeah, Turn Dynamics,
Oh, no.
yeah. Yeah, and then Hub Zone, and again, another, Turn Dynamics is another one that's utilized the Hub Zone. In fact, they wouldn't have gotten their defense contract if it hadn't been for the Hub Zone program.
Aren't the enterprise zones more for investment in the area?
Yeah, it's for investment in jobs, so job creation and capital improvements to a business.
So it's not really a resource for small businesses, but,
The bar to entry is a bit high for
Yeah.
small businesses, yeah, that's right. But, I mean, the enterprise zone is Dollar General. I believe Dollar General, when they built up in Lively, they used an enterprise zone. Everywhere, in fact, I remember when they were building the one in Whitestone, they wanted to have the enterprise zone moved down there. We just didn't have the timing right. So they use it. Compass Entertainment, yeah, Compass used it. And in fact, there's some development going on in Irvington right now that had business owners that are familiar with the enterprise zone reach out to me and go, hey, when's the zone coming my way? And my view on the enterprise zone has always been, or any incentive program, especially if it's geographically based, is you want to bring it there. You want to be engaged with the businesses and know upfront that they're about to make those investments so that you can bring the zone to them and incentivize what they're doing. Because you can incentivize greater investment than what they might have otherwise done.
was this the zone that we talked about earlier that had limited acreage?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So the enterprise zone incentives aren't always disseminated in a way that's ideal. So, like we have, every year, we go through our building records and any kind of building permit and find out that there's an investment, and there's just a number that they put on the building permit that's not exactly accurate to what the investment's going to be, because, you know, we just require that information. And so we report on, that's how we report to the state about activity. But really, the point of contact is the CPA that ultimately does the application. And so there's one CPA, his name's Michael Locker, that does all the enterprise zone applications in this region. And so it's my desire for the county and myself to be more involved in the enterprise zone. We need to put that out there and myself out there as the point of entry for those businesses. And we need to make it more outwardly facing so that they know that it's there and who to come to. And really the real estate agents who have commercial property need to know more about the program because they can use it to help sell property. You know, like I said, I mentioned bringing it down Harris Road. So it's kind of working strategically with real estate partners and the chamber and businesses to let them know that this incentive program and other incentives as we create them exist so that they can take advantage of them. So that's basically it for my presentation. I just wanted to kind of provide an overview and snapshot. I have a lot more detailed information about these various programs, some of the various programs that those other EDAs have instituted, lessons learned, so on and so forth. So as we go down each avenue, we can dig a little deeper. But I think starting with the subcommittee and continuing to re-examine and redefine our existing grant program, and then looking into some sort of microenterprise or revolving loan program are good next steps as we continue to gather examples about what a website could look like and what functionality it could have for implementation next year.
A lot of information.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry.
A lot of good information.
Yeah.
Thank you for pulling all this together.
a little
So
overwhelmed.
it feels a little like, which one of those priorities do we start with? Are we redesigning our program first? Are we,
I think,
I had envisioned redesigning our grant program first, and which we already took a stab at. We made some changes to the grant. Tom made some changes to the grant criteria, some basic changes after our meeting, and provided.
Yeah, just for discussion, I didn't.
Yeah, that's just for discussion.
Not approved.
Yeah, right. And then Tom provided this, which is like all you need for a business plan, which I thought, you know,
the basics, yep.
yeah, oh, cool.
which is great. I mean, that really is all you need for a business plan. You know, and what I'd like to do is kind of incorporate this into, you know, our application and our criteria and this all into one document that basically guides a person through the application, lets them know kind of like what we're looking for.
Yep.
Good idea.
This would be nice to also ensure that they have some sort of plan, because we've definitely had a few that didn't.
Yeah, they step
Yeah.
up here and we start asking them and they're like.
Right,
Yeah.
or like asking the plan
Yeah,
questions.
absolutely. I love that.
So
But
I
I
think-
do,
Go ahead.
oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was thinking, as far as next steps, I could put together kind of a draft application kind of grant manual that takes into consideration our conversation.
Yeah.
And then the next time the subcommittee meets, we can kind of review that and go through it.
I think that's a good idea, go ahead.
I love the idea of redoing our program, but I almost feel like we need to take a step back, because I don't know what our program's goals are anymore. And if we're really, truly aligned with what the county's trying to do in Lancaster 2035. So I think that as much as I want to jump right in to that piece, I think we need to make sure we're because we only have so much money, so let's make it do what we do
Let's target it,
excellently
yeah.
and have a greater impact.
Well, that's kind of.
Have you all reviewed the Lancaster 2035 plan? And, I mean, they actually have goals for the EDA in it. So
You don't, I don't think.
Oh,
it might be, that's a different, not that document, but
it's been a very long time.
yeah, it might be. Can you send that out to everybody?
Yeah, I'll send that, I think you reverted to that one banner page.
I know
Yeah.
at one point their feedback was that we
I'll send it
needed
out.
more vision. So, is that something that you can easily read their goals for the EDA?
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. And it's just, their overall plan, but it's a plan. We can do some of it. I mean, we can't do all of it. We can do some of what was presented. We can't do all of it. I think the next steps, and I was writing down some notes, and John, I think you're on the right path and other people, but just continue to have a subcommittee that meets to look at the current grant guidelines and tweaking those and updating those, and maybe at the same time take a step back and look at the goals of Lancaster 2035 and try to align our goals with theirs. Talk about, we talk about a website, and I know the county has a website, the Chamber of Commerce has a website. I don't know if we need to develop our own website. I think we could probably partner with somebody and just a lot of this information that you have here to filter some of that, but then put it out there so people know that we're active and we're here. If you're not on the internet, you're not alive, unfortunately.
Especially if you're not with her.
And then look at designing a loan program with maybe targeting some of the recommendations of the Lancaster 2035 plan. And then separate from that, just exploring different revenue sources. We have the bonds, sponsoring bonds. We might get a crack at the $10 million. The county poorhouse funds, we need to develop a program to go ask for money from that, and maybe the county has some other funds if we have a great idea. But there was other things in John's presentation, like sponsoring tax credits. I don't know. Can we get into that?
Don doesn't look enthusiastic about that.
When we,
I have a larger staff.
Well, I actually had a conversation with our Commissioner of Revenue, our acting Commissioner of Revenue, about the various property and personal property taxes that are levied on businesses. And really, it was a conversation with Turn Dynamics that brought it up because they pay a machinery and tools tax. And they would love to have some sort of incentive related to the machinery and tools tax because they're investing quite a bit in expanding that business and growing it rapidly. That machinery and tools tax and personal property tax hasn't changed in,
I think 2007 was the last time.
Yeah.
And any adjustments were made
Yeah.
on taxes other than real estate.
yeah, and a good example is the city of Norfolk has a sunsetting tax incentive program that especially pertains to the machinery and tools tax, that over a 5-year period goes from like 5% to 4% to 3%. So some sort of sunsetting tax incentive for businesses, personal property tax incentive. And,
No, I really was intrigued by that workforce housing,
yeah.
selling those, like a historic tax credit and getting that revenue, but anyhow.
the bond
I don't know
program.
if that's what you were thinking. I wasn't thinking that, but anyhow, there's lots of things.
So how does that work? Sorry, you guys were talking about two different things.
Yeah, we were talking about two different things. Sorry about that.
Are you talking about the BOUD program? Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely have an interest in that.
How does that
Well,
work?
yeah.
Can you explain that in like?
Well, I think what I'll do with that program is, yeah, I can, there's a presentation that was given at the Governor's Housing Conference. And I can actually probably get with Jimmy at Mount Rogers PDC and have him maybe beam in here and provide a little bit of a presentation about that program. I was going to do the same thing for CBRAC, So maybe I'll do that first and then give it to you guys, recorded or whatever, so you can learn more.
CBRAC is the Lancaster.
It's the 2035 committee, yeah. Because their focus this year is housing affordability. And y'all's focus has been creating a more business-friendly environment and the EDA expanding its activities based on what the 2035 plan lays out. So I'll send you the 2035 plan to everyone again. I'll actually highlight the sections and recommendations that I think fall under the purview of the EDA, or at least with some collaboration with the county and CBRAC could be implemented. Meanwhile, I'm going to continue to gather content for a website. So I've been doing that all along. I have kind of a running spreadsheet where I keep links and different programs that would be available to folks in Lancaster. And then me and Glenn will continue our discussions about what it would take to set up either a new website or using an existing website or whatever. We've already had some pretty good conversations about that. And then as the subcommittee meets again, we can continue on with redefining our grant program, modifying it, and then exploring potential loan programs. So I think sending that out to everybody and then setting up our next subcommittee meeting and bringing in someone, more information about the EDA and USDA grants that would set up a microenterprise loan program for us to discuss.
Yeah, I think that's a great next steps.
Okay.
And I'll also reach out to my contact at Virginia Small Business Financing Authority, just to get a little information from them if we do go down that route of having a loan program ourselves, if they would partner with us.
Yeah, that would be a great for us to kind of have a conversation or maybe beam them into the subcommittee meeting to talk about that. I can get someone from EDA and USDA to do the same.
Okay.
Okay, that would be good.
John, you know, we talk about helping small businesses and we don't have much money. I think there's a good way we could work with the Chamber of Commerce and come up with a brochure for small businesses, people that are just starting out, have contact information and have the information that they can go to get loans or look at enterprise zones and things. Because a lot of people have a passion to start a small business, but they don't know how to go about it. They just open their doors and, you know, through a lot of hard work and maybe some dumb luck, they make it. But if we could give them free information on how to start their business, that wouldn't cost us much money to come up with brochures. And I think if we work with Chamber of Commerce, they've got 400 members, that might be a good start to spend a little bit of money to give small businesses some inspiration to where to go, what to look for. Because they don't know about enterprise zones, they don't know about tax incentives, they don't know about much of anything. So that could be an inexpensive way to help.
I like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Roy.
That brochure would, is the beginning of a website page.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the concept there.
It's the
But I do think, I mean, you just ran through a ton of programs, right? Like
Yes.
state and local and some federal. I feel like that is what's confusing to most people who have never ventured into that, is just what are these? It'd be great to even have a matrix where it's like, I have this many employees, I need this much money, and then they can kind of delve down to what applies to them. Almost like a,
Yeah, this is it's actually a really great idea, and when I met with someone from the Virginia Chamber of Commerce, really trying to get some ideas for how our chamber can, be better and how we can be better with them. And I mentioned the collaboration between us. They mentioned some sort of, not just a welcoming document, but some sort of like welcoming committee. A small group of like 3 or 4 individuals that can be ready and available for a new business to welcome them. I encountered this recently where we got interest from a prospective business that might wanted to relocate to the area. And I realized that depending on what department they get, there could be departmental bias about, the business, what it wants to do, what its compatibility is with the community. And it seemed to me that to remove that departmental bias, some sort of independent committee that's maybe predominantly business owners themselves can welcome them, vet them out. Because we've also gotten our fair share of fake businesses or businesses with some sort of ulterior motive, George Negron and others, so that they can actually vet them out, understand what it is that they're looking for, and then liaise with county staff to answer any questions that they might have. So that I think, in addition to a brochure, something like that, and that would be a partnership, I think, with the Chamber of Commerce.
So when you take a look at the complexity of actually getting all of this done, and if you look through this, there's a $1,000 maximum. As I've said before, the amount of money that we're able to give to someone is so small that it almost is no incentive to come down here and do all the work to even ask for it. And I've looked the last few meetings, and we really haven't had very many people down here asking. Now, I don't know what the background is there, but my point is, maybe this idea of a loan is something that we should pursue a lot further, because that might enable us, if we can get the money, a way to get a more significant amount of money in somebody's hands, without our perceived risk that we're giving it to somebody and it's going out the door. I mean, if you give somebody $1,000, you don't really worry about whether they're going to get it back, but it's not enough really to do anything. You see, I say we got to, you go around and around in a circle on that.
Yep.
And taking a methodical approach and having having those incentives be universal, because the town of Warsaw, to some pretty great success, has provided incentives to businesses, but it's been a case-by-case basis. And I don't know how much I subscribe to that method of doing things. To me, it seems like it could be inherently unfair if you're prioritizing one business over another. So I personally prefer a more blanket approach that provides those incentives to. Now, if there is a specific industry cluster that you're looking to promote or entice, then you can focus on that. So it's kind of twofold, Bruce. It's one, providing incentives and resources to existing business for business growth, but then we need to also come up with incentives that attract the high-skill, high-wage jobs that the 2035 plan calls for, and those kind of businesses.
Get the structure in place, and maybe it's easier to go to, say, I know we have a poorhouse track, but you get a structure in place like you've outlined here, then it might be easier to go to the Board of Supervisors and say, okay, look at this, look at the structure we have for assuring that your money is going to be put to good use. Then it's easier to say, okay, put us in the budget.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a thought.
Yeah, I think that's the steps we're trying to take to get there.
Yeah, more sustainable, like a revolving loan fund it's sustainable
Yeah.
because it continuously capitalizes.
Because where else are you going to get the money? I mean,
Yeah.
we've looked at places, but
Yeah.
Where else are you really going to get the money for any entity that really wants to benefit Lancaster County?
Right.
Well, John mentioned state and maybe federal funding, but
Yeah.
of course, with what's going on, we don't know if the federal funding's, that corpus of money is shrinking fast. I think, anyway. for
Yeah, no, this is-
Grants and things.
This is true, and I don't even have a rural development, a state rural development point of contact any longer. They've kind of cleaned house at the USDA Rural Development Office. So, but we'll keep pushing forward, and I think if we can present ourselves on merit, we should be pretty competitive if it's a competitive grant program.
Thanks for all the work you've done. Just can't imagine.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for your
We're moving the
support.
ball finally.
Yeah.
We have any other questions?
I'm just
on this?
curious with the revolving loan idea, is that, how long, where you've seen examples, is it like they repay it within, I think you had like a 5-year, 3%? example in there? Is that, or are these short loans? Like, how big are these loans that you
Yeah,
see?
my idea would be like workforce housing, like helping them with site development, you know, and so it'd be a longer term.
So they would
loan.
have some time to repay that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm wondering how fast that cycle comes back to us. When do we get the money back
Well, I think
to reloan it?
their program is a 5-year, you have to pay it back within 5 years. But
Within
we can,
5 years.
We can do whatever we want. I think I had asked Jerry back in the past about a $40,000 loan at that point in time. And he said that was kind of in line with the stuff they were doing.
So us starting that, though, we don't get that money back to reloan for quite, like,
Well, we get it back
we
a
can-
little bit every month.
well, I know, but I mean, like, to make another $40,000 loan, we
Well,
have
we
to pull from
And
that.
that's
We could
what
do
Bruce-
That county
microloans
fund
to
again.
start with
That's
1
what
year.
Bruce was saying, you know, if we have a good loan program in place, criteria, and we can demonstrate to the board of supervisors that this is what we're doing, we need more money. So, yeah,
Right.
we would need more
For a
capital
little while.
to continue for bigger loans.
Yeah.
But,
And-
but hopefully the loans are paying themselves back.
Right,
Right.
over time, yeah.
And we can plan for a phased approach to starting. So start with microloans with smaller amounts first.
I mean, I think that would be
quicker
so
turn,
much
phase
more
back.
productive to our goals, even if we're still defining them or redefining them.
Sure,
And to businesses. Because I agree, I think that what we've been doing is not, it's
Not
helped some
making an
businesses a little
impact.
bit, but it's not making a big impact. And even those businesses aren't necessarily getting more resilient from those. It might just be buying something they need at that time or.
Right.
And I've shared this before in the past, but I mean, just because we want it to be business friendly doesn't mean that we can't charge an interest rate that allows us to continue to build the program, to cover our expenses and put more money into the program. So just, I mean, we
Right.
could charge subprime and still make money to
Yeah.
grow the pot that we're building. So it won't be a lot of growth, but
Right.
something.
Okay, so the subcommittee will continue this conversation. That's what we're deciding.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
before we close, I did want to make an announcement. You know, last year, we partnered with the Chamber of Commerce. I think Walmart had pulled out as a
Yeah.
big sponsor, and tonight at Big Red Auctions, Chamber of Commerce is having a big meeting from 5 to 7. And I think anybody on the EDA board that wants to meet some of these new businesses or meet, what's her
Just
first
an
name?
after hours.
It's Leslie,
It's an
Leslie
after hours,
Janinski.
yeah.
Yeah.
After hours.
And you know,
social
Brad
event.
Smith, the owner of Big Red Auctions, he was Entrepreneur of the Year, I believe, last year.
That's
For
right.
the Chamber of Commerce. And has built a pretty successful business. So if you want to see that, it's right there on Main Street in Kilmarnock from 5 to 7 tonight. John's going to be there. I'll be there, but John's got to leave for a planning commission meeting, so you'll only be there for probably 10, 15 minutes.
I should be there.
Will you?
Yeah, we're past our 9:50 time for the funding role and direction discussion.
Okay.
Anything else, John, or anybody on that subject, funding roles and direction? I think that was a good discussion.
Yeah, thank you.
And now
John.
we're at any other business, which Chamber After Hours tonight, Rory, let us know about.
I just have a question. Is everybody happy with the 8:30 meeting start time?
Everybody happy with what?
The 8:30 a.m.?
It's a little hard for me to get here
Yeah.
on days I have to get my kids to school because that's when they get dropped off in Irvington. But 4 times a year, I can usually figure it out, so.
Yeah,
If it was more often, it'd probably be hard for me.
I like it.
I like it. Get it
Yeah.
done.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And congratulations to Lisa for getting ready to open up a new location.
We reopen tomorrow. The bookstore is, I will not be there tonight because I will be probably at the store trying to shelve books and roll out furniture. But yeah, we reopen tomorrow at our new spot. so.
Where's the new location?
So it's the old shoe store on West Church, so just across the street from where we
Oh,
were.
okay. Just across
Next to
the street,
Nacho
yeah.
Average. It's been completely built out new. The new landlord actually split that space into 2 and then built out, everything is new but the roof, literally. So it's nice, it's clean, it has lighting, you know, it's much nicer than it was.
Congrats.
So, thank you, yeah. Come see us on April 26th. That's our grand reopening.
April 26th.
Indie Bookstore Day. Lots of fun stuff going on that day.
Okay. What are your hours on the 26th?
10 to 5 that day. 11 to 5 weekdays will be our regular hours, 10 to 5 on Saturday. And that's also artfully crafted in Kilmarnock, so there will be a lot going on Main Street that day as well.
Sweet.
So it should be, hopefully, good people out.
Good stuff.
Yeah?
Go spend your money, people. Economic development.
Yeah, please spend your money locally.
Next regular meeting, Thursday, July 17th, here at 8:30. And with, if nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. Second. We're adjourned.